Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today and going full gearhead.
That's right. We're tackling equipment in D&D, specifically from the 5th edition basic rules. You guys send in some awesome resources.
Yeah, we'll be unearthing all those crucial details about the stuff our adventurers carry. It can get a bit overwhelming, though, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we're here to distill it, make it digestible, and highlight the practical stuff, and maybe even a few surprises.
I love the surprises. So where do we even begin with all this gear? I mean, how does a fresh-faced adventurer even acquire their first sword or, I don't know, backpack?
Well, there are a couple of main paths. When you're creating your character, you can either go with the suggested equipment based on your class and background. It's like a starter pack tailored to that character type.
So a rogue might start with, say, lockpicks, maybe a hidden dagger, whereas a fighter gets a more straightforward weapon and shield combo.
Exactly. It sets the tone right off the bat. Or you can choose to receive a set amount of gold pieces based on your class, giving you a bit more freedom to buy exactly what you want.
Ah, so you get to be a bit more hands-on with your character's starting loadout. Does the amount of gold vary much between classes?
It does. The cleric and fighter, for instance, they both start with 5d4 times 10 gold pieces. But if you're rolling up a rogue or a wizard, you're looking at 44 times 10 gold pieces.
Interesting. So those classes that are usually on the front lines or maybe have stronger ties to established organizations tend to start with a bit more.
Right. It reflects their potential access to resources, maybe even their social standing from the get-go. It even adds an extra layer to those early interactions with NPCs.
I like that. It's not just about buying power. It adds a layer of depth to the character's background. But hold on, wealth in D&D isn't always just about stacks of gold coins, is it?
No way. It can take many forms. You have your gemstones, practical trade goods like spices or raw materials, even art objects, animals, property ownership. And the form your wealth takes often says a lot about your social status.
So a humble peasant is more likely to barter, right? Trading goods for necessities, maybe paying their taxes with, like, a portion of their harvest.
Exactly. Imagine trying to collect taxes in bushels of wheat. Talk about logistical nightmare.
Definitely not as straightforward as a bank transfer. What about the nobles, then? Do they even deal with coins that much?
Not as much. For them, it's about legal rights, owning things like mines, ports, vast farmlands. They might deal in large quantities of gold and silver, but more like bars or weight, not individual coins.
So it's us, the adventurers, and the merchants who are dealing with the everyday coins, the gold, silver, and copper pieces.
You got it. Coins are the bread and butter for adventurers, merchants, and anyone providing those day-to-day services. It's the currency of the realm, so to speak.
All right, let's talk about those coins then. Let's start with the gold piece, the GP as I see it abbreviated everywhere. What can a single gold piece buy you in the D&D world?
A gold piece, that's your standard unit of value. A single one could buy you a bedroll for a night under the stars, 50 feet of good rope, or even a goat.
Wait, a goat for a gold piece? That's an interesting metric. I guess that puts things into perspective.
It does. And to further illustrate the point, a skilled artisan could earn about 1 gold piece for a full day's work. So it's not to be spent frivolously.
No kidding. All right, what about the silver piece?
Yeah.
That's the SP, right?
That's the one. A silver piece is 1/10 of a gold piece, far more common among the everyday folk. You could get half a day's labor from someone, a flask of lamp oil, or a night's stay at a really basic inn. It's your everyday currency for most transactions.
Well, it's the copper piece, the copy. That's the real bottom rung.
You got it. 10 copper pieces make 1 silver. Think of it as the currency for the working class, maybe even those struggling to get by. With 1 copper, you can get a candle, a torch, a piece of chalk.
Makes sense. It's a hierarchy that reflects the economics of the game world. Now, I've also seen mentions of electrum and platinum pieces, the ep and piper. Are those just as common?
They're a bit rarer, often remnants of older civilizations. An electrum piece, that's 5 silver pieces, but it's not as widely accepted. Platinum, on the other hand, is worth a whopping 10 gold pieces, so it's quite valuable. You might even raise eyebrows trying to use those in more rural areas, especially with electrum being so awkwardly in between.
It's like finding ancient currency. Could lead to some interesting role-playing encounters. And speaking of coins, all that treasure must get heavy.
It does. A good rule of thumb. 50 coins, regardless of the type, weigh about 1 pound. So gotta factor that in when your adventurers are hauling their loot.
So you can't be too greedy, or you'll be weighed down by all your success.
Yeah.
Now, you've got all this loot, but how do you actually turn it back into usable wealth or, acquire new gear?
Well, you'll need to find a buyer, usually a merchant in a town or settlement. But here's the thing. The return on your investment, so to speak, isn't always straightforward.
So no guaranteed exchange rate for every Goblin Slain sword.
Exactly. For standard gear, their weapons, armor, adventuring gear, you'll usually get about half the price if it's in good condition. But if it's something a monster was using, well, that's usually too beat up to sell. A rusty goblin sword isn't exactly a hot commodity.
Makes sense. What about those more exciting finds, the magical items? Are those easy to sell?
Ah, that's a whole different ballgame. A simple potion or scroll, sure, you might find a buyer easily enough, but for those powerful, unique, magical items, you're looking at a much smaller market. Maybe a wealthy noble or a specialist collector would be interested. And don't expect to find shops overflowing with powerful magic items either. It's more about the unique acquisition than the reliable resale value.
So those magical items are more about the story, the unique acquisition. What about the gems and jewelry and those fancy art objects we sometimes stumble upon?
Now those tend to hold their value. You can usually trade them directly for coins or even use them as currency in some cases. For really valuable pieces, you might need to seek out a specific appraiser, maybe in a larger city, to get the best price.
Good to know those art heists can pay off. And the trade goods, those raw materials, are they similar?
Pretty much. Those sacks of salt, bars of iron, bundles of spices, those retain their value. They can even be used directly as currency in some places, especially in frontier regions or more rural areas. Think of it as bartering on a larger scale.
This is giving me a whole new appreciation for the D&D economy. It's a lot more than just coin counting. Now let's talk about something that'll keep those adventurers alive long enough to spend their loot. Armor. It's not just about slapping on a metal breastplate and calling it a day, right?
Oh, definitely not. There's a lot to consider, especially when it comes to the different types of armor. You have your light, medium, and heavy, each with its own balance of protection and, well, let's call it mobility. Anyone can technically wear any armor, but you need to be proficient in it to use it effectively.
So what happens if you decide to strut around in plate armor when your rogue really shouldn't be?
Well, get ready for some disadvantage rolls. Any check, saving throw, or attack roll that uses strength or dexterity gets hit with disadvantage. And spellcasters. Forget about casting spells if you're not proficient in the armor you're wearing.
That's a strong incentive to stick to what your character knows. Let's start with light armor. Who benefits most from that?
That's for your agile adventurers, the ones who need to move quickly and freely. The good thing about light armor is you get to add your full dexterity modifier to your armor class, your AC. That can make all the difference when dodging a fireball or making a quick escape.
What are some of the light armor options available?
Well, you have padded armor, the most basic. It's 5 GP, gives you an AC of 11 plus your dex modifier, but it does give disadvantage on stealth checks, and it weighs 8 pounds.
So not exactly subtle.
Not really. Then there's leather armor, 10 GP, AC 11 plus dex, weighs 10 pounds, and no stealth penalty. And finally, studded leather. That's 45 GP, AC 12 plus dex, 13 pounds, and still no penalty to stealth. So you see a progression there, better protection for more gold, but keeping that agility.
All right, what about medium armor? I'm guessing it's a step up in protection, but what are the trade-offs?
You're right. Medium armor offers more protection, but you do start sacrificing some of that freedom of movement. You still add your dexterity modifier to the AC, but only up to a maximum of +2. So having crazy high dexterity doesn't give you as much of an edge here.
So even if you're super nimble, the armor limits how much that helps your defense. What are some examples of medium armor?
We've got hide armor, a simpler design. That's AC 12 plus dex, maximum +2, 10 GMP, 12 pounds. Chain shirt's a bit tougher, AC 13 plus dex, max +2, 50 GMP, 20 pounds.
Seems like the cost and weight are going up as the protection improves.
You're catching on. Then there's scale mail, AC 14 plus dex, max +2, but it's heavier at 45 pounds and also gives disadvantage on stealth. And it also costs 50 GP, so it's a trade-off for sure. The breastplate is a popular choice, AC 14 plus dex, max +2, no stealth penalty, 20 pounds, but it's quite a jump in price at 400 GP. And if you want the best protection in the medium category, there's half plate, AC 15 plus dex, max +2. But it does impose that stealth disadvantage and weighs 40 pounds. Sets you back 750 GMP, though.
Wow, the cost really starts climbing there. Okay, let's talk about heavy armor.
Okay.
That's the full plate, the chainmail, the stuff that screams, I'm here to fight.
That's the one. Heavy armor gives you the best protection, but it's bulky, it's restrictive, and it's really meant for those warriors who are all about that strength and defense. And here's the key difference. You don't add your dexterity modifier to your AC at all.
So being nimble doesn't really help when you're encased in steel.
Nope. But on the flip side, a low dexterity score doesn't penalize you either. And keep in mind, many of these have strength requirements too. If you're not strong enough, you'll be moving slower. It's a commitment, a build choice.
So what are our heavy armor options?
Starting with ring mail, AC 14, 30 GP, 40 pounds, and yes, disadvantage on stealth. Chainmail steps it up, AC 16, but you need a strength of 13 to wear it effectively. It also gives disadvantage on stealth and weighs 55 pounds, costing 75 GP. Splint armor is even tougher, AC 17, strength requirement of 15, same stealth disadvantage, and it weighs 60 pounds. That'll cost you 200 GP. And finally, the king of heavy armor, plate armor.
The iconic full suit of armor.
Exactly. AC 18, strength requirement of 15, disadvantage on stealth, weighs a whopping 65 pounds, and it'll set you back 1,500 GP.
So those rogues, those nimble spellcasters, they'll be sticking to lighter options for sure. But we can't forget about shields. They're not armor, but they definitely help, right?
Absolutely. A shield in your hand gives you a flat +2 bonus to your AC. They're relatively cheap, 10 GP, 6 pounds. The important thing to remember is you can only benefit from one shield at a time. No stacking shields for a super turtle build.
So no matter how many shields you strap on, you're still only getting that +2 bonus.
Yeah.
Now, all this armor, it doesn't magically equip itself, does it?
You're right. There's time involved in putting it on and taking it off. That can be a real factor, especially if you're ambushed or need to make a quick escape.
Like if you're caught napping in full plate armor.
Oof, yeah, not ideal. Light armor, thankfully, is pretty quick. 1 minute to put on, 1 minute to take off. Medium armor, however, that takes 5 minutes to don, but only 1 minute to take off. Heavy armor, get ready for a 10-minute donning process. Taking it off is a bit quicker, 5 minutes. Shields, on the other hand, are just one action to equip or unequip.
So you can whip that shield out or drop it in a flash. What if you find armor that doesn't quite fit, though? Like you loot a giant's breastplate, but your character is, well, not a giant.
There's a variant rule for that, dealing with equipment sizes. Most of the time, common sense prevails, but for a more granular approach, the DM might rule that armor needs adjustments. You might need to find an armorsmith, a tailor, someone to resize it. That'll usually cost between 10 and 40% of the item's market price, depending on the work.
Adds a nice layer of realism to those treasure hunting escapades. Okay, now let's talk about how we dish out some damage weapons. And I'm guessing, just like armor, there's that concept of proficiency, right?
You bet. Your class, race, maybe some feats, those determine what weapons you're proficient in. We have two main categories, simple and martial. Simple weapons are the everyday tools, the stuff most commoners can use. Martial weapons, those are your more specialized swords, axes, polearms, things that require more training.
And what's the benefit of being proficient? I'm guessing it's more than just looking cool wielding a longsword.
It's all about that bonus. You add your proficiency bonus to your attack roll if you're using a weapon you're proficient in. Trying to swing a weapon you don't know, good luck hitting anything, that proficiency bonus can make all the difference in combat.
So stick to your strengths, literally.
Yeah.
All right, let's start with simple melee weapons. What are some of the go-to options for adventurers?
Well, you've got the classic club, a simple bludgeoning weapon. Deals 1d4 damage, and it's a light weapon, which is great for dual wielding. Then there's the dagger, versatile little thing. Deals 1d4 piercing damage, and it's finesse, light, and thrown, with a range of 20-60 feet.
So you can be sneaky with it, or chuck it at an enemy if you need to.
Exactly. Then we've got the great club, bit more of a bruiser. Deals 1d8 bludgeoning damage, but it needs 2 hands to wield it. The hand axe is a favorite. 1d6 slashing damage, light, thrown with that same 20-60 range. A good all-rounder. Then there's a javelin, specifically for throwing, 1d6 piercing damage with a longer range of 3,120 feet, and of course the mace. Simple but reliable, 1d6 bludgeoning damage.
A solid lineup for close quarters combat? What about simple ranged weapons?
For ranged, you've got the light crossbow. Deals 1d8 piercing damage, but it's ammunition, range 8,320 feet, loading, and two-handed. Then there's the dart, really basic. Deals 1d4 piercing damage, finesse, and thrown with a range of 20-60 feet. The short bow is a classic 1d6 piercing damage, ammunition with a range of 8,320 feet, and is two-handed. And lastly, the sling, a bit more old school. Deals 1d4 bludgeoning damage, uses ammunition with a range of 3,120 feet. Notice how many of these simple ranged weapons have that loading property. Makes a big difference in how many attacks you can make.
So choosing the right weapon is about more than just damage. It's about thinking tactically.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to martial melee weapons. Those sound a bit more, shall we say, hardcore.
You bet. Martial weapons, they usually offer more damage or those specialized properties we were talking about. The battle axe, for example, that deals a 1d8 slashing damage, and it's versatile, meaning you can use it with 2 hands to bump that damage up to 1d10. Then you have the flail, a classic 1d8 bludgeoning damage. The glaive, now we're talking, 1d10 slashing damage, heavy, reach, two-handed. A real battlefield sweeper. And then there's the Great Tax Brutal, 1d12 slashing damage, heavy, and two-handed.
So these are for the characters who really mean business in close combat?
Exactly. You got to have the strength and the skill to wield them effectively. Now, the Longthorn, it's a staple. 1d8 slashing damage, versatile, so you can go two-handed for that 1d10. Then you have the Maul, pure brute force. 2d6 bludgeoning damage, heavy and two-handed. The Morningstar, a nasty one, 1d8 piercing damage. The Pike, good for holding a line, 1d10 piercing damage, heavy, reach, and two-handed. The Rapier, now this is a finesse weapon, deals 1d8 piercing damage, perfect for those agile duelists. The Scimitar, another good finesse option, deals 1d6 slashing damage, finesse, light, great for dual wielding. The Short Sword, simple but effective, 1d6 piercing damage, finesse, and light as well. And the Trident, another versatile weapon, 1d6 piercing damage, thrown with a range of 20-60 feet, and you can go two-handed for a 1d8 damage.
That's a lot of options, each with their own unique advantages and drawbacks. What about martial range weapons? What are we looking at there?
For martial ranged, we've got some interesting choices. The blowgun, for example, deals only one piercing damage, but its ammunition ranged 20, 50, 100 feet and loading. It's more about precision and maybe using those special blowgun needles. Then there's the hand crossbow, a step up from the light crossbow. Deals 1d6 piercing damage, ammunition with a range of 30, 100, and 120 feet, light, and loading. The heavy crossbow, that's the big hitter, deals a solid 1d10 piercing damage, ammunition with a range of 100, 400 feet, heavy, loading, and two-handed.
Sounds like it packs a punch, but not something you can fire rapidly.
Right. Then, of course, we have the longbow, a classic. Deals 1d8 piercing damage, ammunition with a longer range of 150, 600 feet, heavy, and two-handed. And finally, we have the net. This one's not about damage. It has the special property, meaning it restrains large or smaller creatures on a successful hit. Thrown with a range of 515 feet, a great tactical option for controlling the battlefield.
Definitely sounds like it could turn the tide of a fight. Now, you've mentioned all these properties, ammunition, finesse, heavy, loading, and so on. Can we go over what those actually mean in a practical sense?
Sure. It's important to understand how those properties impact your choices in your character build. Ammunition, that means you need projectiles to use it, and drawing ammo is part of the attack. So you need a free hand usually. Finesse, that's key for those agile characters. You can use your dexterity modifier instead of strength for attack and damage rolls. Heavy weapons, those are tough to wield, especially for smaller creatures, giving them disadvantage on attack rolls. Light weapons are great for dual wielding, allowing for that extra offhand attack. Loading, that's important to note. It means you can only fire once per action, bonus action, or reaction, so it limits your attacks. Range, that's for your ranged weapons, tells you how far you can shoot effectively. Reach, that extends your melee attack range by 5 feet, important for those polearm users. Special, that means the weapon has unique rules that are specific to it, so check the description carefully. Thrown, that lets you throw a melee weapon for a ranged attack. Two-handed, that means you need both hands to use it properly for attacks. And versatile, those weapons can be used with one or two hands, and the damage changes depending on your grip.
It's amazing how much thought goes into each weapon design. What happens if you're caught without your trusty weapon, though? Do you just surrender?
Not necessarily. That's where improvised weapons come in. Anything you can wield, a broken bottle, a chair leg, anything can become a weapon in a pinch. If it's similar to an existing weapon, the DM might let you treat it as such, especially if you're proficient with it. Otherwise, it usually deals 1d4 damage of an appropriate type. Even using a ranged weapon in melee or throwing a melee weapon that isn't meant to be thrown, that counts as improvised, dealing that 1d4 damage. And improvised thrown weapons usually have a range of 20-60 feet.
So always be resourceful, even when disarmed. What about those times when your regular weapons just don't cut it, like facing a creature that shrugs off normal attacks?
Ah, yes. Some creatures are resistant or even immune to non-magical weapons. That's where silvered weapons come in. You can coat a weapon or 10 pieces of ammunition with silver for 100 Dream P. It bypasses those resistances, making your attacks much more effective. A worthwhile investment for adventurers who regularly face those tougher foes.
A little upgrade can make all the difference. We've covered starting out, handling wealth, armor, and weapons. But what about all the other stuff that an adventurer needs? The gadgets, the gizmos, the everyday essentials.
Ah, yes. We can't forget about all that other adventuring gear. We have ammunition, of course. Arrows for bows, blowgun needles, crossbow bolts, sling bullets. Spellcasters need their foci. Arcane foci like wands and crystals. Druidic foci like mistletoe. Holy symbols for those divine casters. And then there's a vast world of general adventuring gear. Everything from abacuses to whetstones.
I'm guessing there's some particularly useful items in there.
Oh, tons. You might need alchemist's fire to deal with certain creatures, antitoxin to counter poisons, ball bearings to create slippery hazards, caltrops to slow down pursuers, holy water that's effective against fiends and undead, hunting traps for catching those pesky beasts. A magnifying glass can be surprisingly useful. And of course, the everyday essentials like rope, backpacks, bedrolls, tinder boxes. You might even dabble in some basic poison. Then there's the portable ram for those stubborn doors. For wizards, a spellbook is essential. A spyglass can extend your vision. A tent provides shelter. The list goes on.
So much stuff. How do you even keep track of it all?
That's where container capacity comes in. You got to think about how much you can carry. A backpack, that's your standard, holds about 1 cubic foot or 30 pounds of gear. Then you have bigger containers like barrels. Baskets, bottles, buckets, chests, flasks, jugs, pouches, sacks, water skins, they all have their own capacities. It's all about inventory management.
So no hoarding. You got to be strategic about what you carry.
Oh.
Are there like pre-made sets of gear that make things a bit easier?
There are. Equipment packs, they offer a convenient and often cost-effective way to grab a bunch of useful gear that's tailored to a specific role or adventure style. You have the Burglar's Pack for your sneaky types, the Diplomat's Pack for those smooth talkers, the Dungeoneer's Pack for exploring those underground labyrinths, the Entertainer's Pack for those who like to be the life of the party, the Explorer's Pack for your wilderness survivalists, the Priest's Pack for those divinely inclined, and the Scholar's Pack for those knowledge seekers. It's usually cheaper to grab a pack than buy each item individually.
So it's like those pre-made character builds, but for gear. Now, what about tools? Those seem different from weapons or just general adventuring gear.
Tools are specific. They let you perform actions you couldn't do otherwise. Crafting, disguise, forgery, lockpicking, musical performance, you name it. And being proficient with a tool lets you add your proficiency bonus to any ability check you make when using it. So it's not just about having the tool, it's about knowing how to use it effectively.
Makes sense. So what are some examples of these all-important tools?
You have a huge range of artisans' tools, covering everything from alchemy to weaving. A disguise kit for blending in, a forgery kit for faking documents, gaming sets for those who like to gamble, herbalism kit, crucial for identifying plants making potions, musical instruments for entertaining and maybe even influencing others, navigator's tools for sailing the seas, a poisoner's kit for those who prefer a more subtle approach, and of course, thieves' tools, essential for any aspiring rogue.
So many ways to specialize. Those tools really add a layer of depth to the gameplay. Now, what about traveling long distances? Sometimes you need more than just your own 2 feet.
Absolutely. A good mount can be invaluable. Not only do they increase your travel speed, but they can carry a significant amount of gear. And the carrying capacity varies. A camel or riding horse can manage around 480 pounds, while an elephant can haul a massive 320 pounds. Even a donkey or mule can carry 420 pounds. Choose wisely.
So plan your pack animals carefully. What about pulling carts or wagons?
Good point. When pulling a vehicle, the animal can move 5 times its carrying capacity. And if you have multiple animals, you can combine their pulling power. That's how you transport those big hauls.
Makes those cross-country treks a lot more manageable. I'm guessing there are different types of mounts and vehicles for different environments?
Oh, yeah. You have your land mounts, your horses, camels, even elephants. Then there are land vehicles, carriages, carts, wagons. And for water travel, you have rowboats, keelboats for rivers, long ships, even sailing ships and warships for the open seas. Proficiency with certain vehicles can come in handy too, especially in tough situations.
So it's not just about owning it, it's about knowing how to handle it. And what about protecting your mounts? Do they get armor too?
They do. It's called barding, essentially armor for animals. Covers the head, neck, chest, body. You can get barding for any type of armor that humanoids use, but it's expensive, 4 times the cost and twice the weight of the equivalent humanoid armor. A big investment, but it might save your trusty steed's life.
Definitely a tough choice, but sometimes you got to protect your animal companions. We talked about trade goods earlier in terms of wealth. How does that all work in the bigger picture?
Trade goods are a big part of the D&D economy. They often exist outside of the coin system, with guilds, nobles, and royalty often regulating trade. Merchants often barter directly with these goods. Their value is usually pretty stable, ranging from a single copper piece for a pound of wheat to 500 gold pieces for a pound of platinum. You have your everyday goods like flour, salt, iron, copper. Then you have your spices, ginger, cinnamon, those sorts of things, precious metals, of course. And then luxury items like silk and saffron. Trade can be a whole adventure in itself.
So It's a complex web of resources and exchange. Now let's talk about something a bit more grounded, lifestyle expenses. Adventurers got to eat and sleep somewhere, right?
Exactly. Lifestyle expenses cover your accommodation, food, drink, all those basic necessities. It even includes the upkeep of your gear. You choose a lifestyle that reflects your character's circumstances, and it costs a certain amount per day. You have everything from the wretched lifestyle for those barely scraping by to the aristocratic lifestyle for those living in luxury.
I'm guessing each lifestyle comes with certain implications.
Definitely. The wretched lifestyle, that means living in squalor, facing constant danger. Squalid is slightly better, but still pretty rough. A poor lifestyle means simple food and lodging, but you're still exposed to crime and disease. A modest lifestyle, that's when you start living a bit more comfortably. A comfortable lifestyle means nicer clothes, better living conditions. A wealthy lifestyle, that's a life of luxury, maybe even servants. And then the aristocratic lifestyle, that's all about influence and power, but it comes with its own set of problems like political intrigue and social obligations. Your lifestyle can really impact how you interact with NPCs and what opportunities you might have.
It's more than just money. It's a statement about your character's place in the world. What about the nitty-gritty of food and lodging costs?
You can track those individually if you want, but the lifestyle expenses usually cover it all. The prices vary, of course. A gallon of ale might be a couple of silver, while a fancy bottle of wine could set you back a few gold. Daily meals and lodging also vary based on quality. A squalid lifestyle might cost a few copper pieces per day, while an aristocratic lifestyle can easily reach several gold pieces per day.
So you can be really detailed or you can abstract it with the lifestyle costs. What about those characters who prefer a more self-sufficient approach, living off the land?
There's an option for that. If your character spends their time hunting and foraging, they might not have those regular lifestyle expenses. It's time-consuming, though. If they practice a trade during downtime, they might earn the equivalent of a poor lifestyle. And being proficient in the survival skill can help, potentially even sustaining a comfortable lifestyle in the wilderness.
So it depends on the character's skills and priorities. What if you need help with something, though? Can you hire NPCs?
Oh yeah, all the time. For simple tasks like laborers or porters, those are pretty cheap to hire. Skilled hirelings like mercenaries or artisans, those cost more because of their expertise. You can hire coaches for travel, messengers for delivering important information. Even passage on a ship has a set cost.
A whole service industry for adventurers. What about magic? Can you hire someone to cast a spell for you?
That's trickier. There are no set rates, and it depends on the spell. Common, low-level spells might cost 10 to 50 gold pieces, plus any material components. But for higher-level spells, you might need to travel to a major city, or even offer a significant favor in return. Finding the right spellcaster can be an adventure in itself.
Sounds like it. Okay, let's wrap up with something a bit more fun, those trinkets. What are those all about?
Trinkets are little items, often with a bit of mystery to them. You can get them during character creation or find them on your adventures. They don't usually have a mechanical purpose, they're more for flavor, adding depth to your character. The basic rules have a table with 100 sample trinkets. Everything from a pair of old socks to a mummified goblin hand. You might have a glowing crystal, a coin from a faraway land, a strange idol. It's all about those little details that bring your character to life.
I love that. Those little touches can make all the difference.
Exactly. It's about making your character unique and memorable.